Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Trucking Live. Today is Wednesday, March 16th, and we are back here in the garage for another live episode. I hope you appreciate the little intro we got. We are always trying to turn up the production value on our little garage show here, and I think slowly but surely we're getting better. The first thing I will ask all you guys out there in internet land is, do we sound okay? I've upgraded our microphone setup this week, so please let me know if we sound good and if we look good. The other thing you should know is we've traded out our coffees for beers tonight, so cheers, Matt. Hopefully you guys can have a drink along with us.
I mean, my mini fridge full of beers has been staring at us the last 3 shows, and I don't know, it just seemed like a missed opportunity until tonight.
All right, it's about 7 degrees Celsius tonight.
It's beautiful in here.
A heck of a lot warmer than
We've only got one heater on instead of 5.
Yeah, it's quite a bit nicer in here. So let's get into some truck talk, Matt. For anyone who hasn't seen the show before, on TK Live, we like to go over truck news. So we try to cover the big truck news of the week. This week, we actually have van news, not truck news. So we'll touch on that. This week's a little different because there wasn't a ton of news out there. So I actually went together and put together a list of the most and least efficient pickup trucks, half-ton pickup trucks from all 5 major brands. You guys know this. I don't need to tell you. Fuel prices are out of control. It's affecting everybody. So we figured we'd jump on the bandwagon too and talk about fuel economy. Because if there's ever been a time to buy a truck that sips fuel, now is that time.
There's only so much we can talk about EV trucks on this show.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm starting to feel a little derivative there last week.
Thanks for all the good audio checks there, guys. I appreciate it. We finally have real microphones, so we should sound better this week. And then, finally here on TK Live, we answer your questions. So if you'll send us your questions, you can put them in the comments right now, and we'll try to answer them live. If you want to email them to us, you can send them to hey, that's HEY, @trucking.ca, and we always do our best to answer them here on the show.
Yeah, you don't got to remember them now. If it pops into your head on the weekend, shoot us a note, comment on the video, let us know for next week.
Absolutely. And then the final reminder I'll put out there is making all these videos does cost us money, so we do appreciate donations. There's a little donate button down there. You can throw us a couple bucks. It goes a long, long way. Yeah. We're talking about fuel prices, and it costs a lot.
And then I'll be able to afford a full-size beer next time.
Okay, Matt, so let's jump right into our first topic. So in no particular order, we're going to cover these, and then we'll come back around at the end and tell you what the most efficient half-ton is. But for now, let's just go brand by brand, and we'll start with the Ford F-150, best-selling vehicle in North America.
Absolutely.
And what I like about what Ford does with its fuel economy, and you'll see this in the list and other places too, is that the most fuel-efficient F-150 you can buy today is the hybrid, is the Power Boost hybrid. And that's also the most powerful F-150 that you can buy. So they've really done a nice job there of offering you high power and good fuel efficiency.
The best of both worlds in one package.
So what are the numbers, Matt? How about it for the 2-wheel drive F-150?
Alrighty, so for the 2-wheel drive 3.5-liter hybrid, we are looking at 25, 25, 25, and that is miles per gallon, city, highway, and combined. And for everybody here in Canada, that is a combined of 9.4 liters per 100 kilometers. And now that, like you just mentioned, is the hybrid drivetrain, which is making 430 horsepower and 570 pound-feet of torque.
Yeah,
so
seriously powerful.
Efficiency and powerful. I mean, this is what everybody's hunting for in this market, right?
Exactly.
Now, if you step that same engine, same powertrain up to the 4-wheel drive version, you lose a little bit. So instead of 25s across the board, you now have 23s across the board. 23 miles per gallon, city, highway, and combined. And once again, the conversion for us Canucks, 10.2 liters per 100 kilometers.
Yeah, which in my books, any half-ton that gets 10 or less is pretty solid. So I mean, I really feel good about those numbers.
And Steve did a great job with this list. I got to give him credit because he then went through, do you want to do the worst or do you want to do the best?
No, I think we should do worst at each brand. So let's hit the worst Ford right now.
All right, so we went through, and of course, the most fun Ford, the Raptor, with the 37-inch tires, comes in at 14 miles per gallon. No, that's highway. Highway, 16 miles per gallon city, and 15 combined. And in Canada, that is 15.6 liters per 100 kilometers. So it's going to cost you more to have more fun.
Of course. And I mean, the trend you will notice is the more off-road ready your truck gets, the less fuel efficient it gets. I mean, massive tires take a lot of power to turn. You're just always adding on more weight to your rig, therefore less fuel efficient. And not to mention, all these off-road rigs, too, are all the most most powerful engines out of all of these different trucks.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's no surprise, right? If, like you said, if you really want to play with those crazy high horsepower trucks, you have to pay. And nowhere do you pay more, Matt, than at Ram. So let's talk about the Ram 1500 now. If you go over to Ram, the most efficient engine you're going to get is that 3-liter diesel. Ram does the e-torque thing. That's a mild hybrid. They haven't done the full hybridization of its truck yet. Of course, they're going to go all electric. They haven't done that yet either. If you go, though, for that 2-wheel-drive 3-liter diesel with the HFE package on a Ram 1500, you're talking about 23 miles per gallon in the city, 33 miles per gallon on the highway, and 26 mpg combined. And Matt, 26 mpg combined is 9 liters per 100. So the Ram is clear of that 10 mark.
Yeah.
And now we add on 4-wheel drive to that. The diesel's still the most efficient, coming in at 21 mpg, 29 highway, 24 combined. So you lose 2 mpg for 4-wheel drive, exactly the same as with the Ford F-150.
Yep.
And I'll remind you that that 3-liter diesel in the Ram is making 260 horse and 480 pound-feet of torque. So you're not getting the crazy horsepower out of that hybrid, but it is that nice diesel low-end torque, and we know that EcoDiesel feels good. And now, Matt, why don't you tell them, and might as well, spoiler alert here, the thirstiest truck on the list, I don't think anyone is surprised, is the Ram TRX. Hit them with the numbers.
All right, so you got that 6.2-liter supercharged V8, and what's it going to cost you towing that fuel truck from station to station? Well, 10 miles per gallon, 14 miles per gallon on the highway, and 12 miles per gallon combined. And here in Canada, that is 19.6 liters per 100. And if I'm doing the math quickly in my head, that is $40 per 100 kilometers. That's based on what I saw at the pumps today.
It is brutal, man. And, the TRX is over 700 horsepower. It's a ridiculous truck. It also costs over $100,000.
Yeah.
So basically, if you have the money to buy it, you probably have the money to fuel it. But there is no way to drive that truck efficiently. There is absolutely no way to baby it. It's going to be thirsty, but it's also ridiculously fun. So now, Matt, we will move on to the Chevrolet Silverado. And it also is most efficient with the diesel. Same thing, Chevy hasn't gone sort of the full hybrid route yet, so you have to go to the diesel to get the most efficient truck from a Chevrolet. The 2-wheel drive 3-liter diesel, you're talking about 23 miles per gallon in the city. I lost it here. 31 on the highway and 26 combined. And so for anyone keeping score, that's the same combined rating as the Ram EcoDiesel, but that is 2 mpg worse on the highway. The Chevy diesel is right there with the Ram. Add 4-wheel drive, Matt, to the Chevrolet, and no surprise, it goes down by 2 miles per gallon combined. That seems to be a real trend here.
Except for on the highway. The highway number is a loss of almost 5 mpg to jump from that 2 to 4-wheel, which I thought was an interesting stat because, yeah, it's typically pretty consistent with that 1 or 2 drop, not something that egregious.
No, it does depend on which brand you go for. Yeah. Now, that 3-liter inline-6 diesel in the General Motors products is making 277 horsepower, a little more horsepower than the Ram, and 460 pound-feet of torque. That's a little bit less torque than the Ram. The one thing I'll say about the GM, which always stands out to me, is how smooth it is. And I think that is mostly just i6 diesel versus V6 diesel. But that Duramax, it's buttery smooth.
Yeah.
So this is I actually think we're breaking a little bit of news here, Matt. When I was digging into fueleconomy.gov, which is the EPA's website with all of this information, I found the 2022 Silverado Z or ZR2 listed on there. Now, no one's driven the ZR2 yet. We are actually going down to California in a couple weeks to drive it. That's really exciting. Stay tuned for that. But yeah, as far as I know, no one's really paid much attention to ZR2 fuel economy. So I'm calling this breaking news, even though it's already out there.
World-exclusive breaking news that we accidentally stumbled upon.
Yes, the Chevrolet Silverado ZR2, and I'm calling it Z from now on, is rated at 14 miles per gallon city, 17 highway, and 15 miles per gallon combined. Again, for the Canadians, that's 15.6 liters per 100 combined. And interestingly, Matt, that is the exact same rating as the Raptor, except for the Raptor's one worse on the highway. And I went and did it too. If you take away the 37s, they're the exact same ratings for this new ZR2 versus the Raptor.
So we can make assumptions about the power plant that's coming.
Oh, well, we know it's the 6.2 V8.
We absolutely do.
Yeah, so we already knew that. So we're going to get that V8. That's the only one that they're offering right now. But that's it. That's their most powerful big V8, and you know it's going to suck fuel. And they're big tires on that ZR2 as well, 35. So that's going to be a fun truck. Look for that review soon here on the channel.
All right, well, let's jump ahead here and let's do Mr. Nissan Titan.
Yeah, specifically for our American friends, because there is no Titan in Canada.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think Nissan's done anything to refresh this powertrain enough to even look at fuel efficiency, so we're just going to hit you with the numbers. So this is the two-wheel drive, 5.6-liter V8 gas engine, and we're doing 16 miles per gallon in the city, 21 on the highway, and 18 combined. And here in Canada, well, if you can find one, that is 13 liters per 100 kilometers combined. Now, that engine does make 400 horsepower and 413 pound-feet of torque. But again, nothing we didn't already know. These numbers have been around for a while.
Yeah, and they're not great numbers or some of the worst on the list. Although there's one weird thing, you've probably already spotted it.
Yeah.
When you go from two-wheel drive to four-wheel drive, the highway and combined ratings stay the same, and just the city rating drops by 1 mpg. Don't ask me to explain it. I don't understand why one four-wheel drive system will be that different from another, but who knows? Maybe Nissan really does something significant in there to help save fuel.
Maybe.
And then, you know, it's a funny thing, Matt. I'll just hit it because I have it written down here.
Yeah.
We do so much cross-border stuff where we're always trying to, we're always trying to do MPG and liters per 100. This is just totally an interesting note that I thought you guys might be interested in. 15.3 liters per 100 kilometers is 15.3 miles per gallon. There is actually a crossover there. Now, as they move away from that point, they don't scale at the same level, but that's just an interesting point. So, you know, 15.3 is the same, and then out from there, you can kind of sort of make assumptions. I should do real math, but I can kind of do real rough math in my head pretty quickly now, just based on that.
It's a couple of stats. It's the same way that I know 0 degrees Celsius is 32 Fahrenheit. There's a couple that just sync up over time.
Yeah.
Minus 40 is minus 40. Everybody's cold.
So yeah, sorry, a random point, but I thought that was interesting. And finally, Matthew, let's get to the Toyota Tundra. Now, this is the brand new Tundra, of course, with that twin-turbo V6 and the hybrid powertrain. And let's do the numbers first, and then we actually have a little story to relate. So, first of all, the most efficient Tundra you can buy is the two-wheel drive iForce Max Hybrid. Now, that engine is making 20 miles per gallon in the city, 24 on the highway for 22 miles per gallon combined. Now with this powertrain, we have to compare it to the Power Boost from Ford. When you're talking power, the Toyota actually makes 7 more horsepower. And when you're looking at torque, the Toyota makes 13 more pound-feet of torque. So the Toyota hybrid is a hair more powerful than the Ford, but you're also down, 3 miles per gallon combined.
Yep.
So, you know, I think you look at those and you think, well, Ford is giving you the mix, whereas Toyota still skews more towards power and less towards fuel economy, even in its brand new truck. And then we can skip down to a four-wheel drive iForce Max Hybrid. And luckily, like the Nissan, you don't actually lose a lot going from two-wheel to four-wheel. The four-wheel drive model is 19 in the city, 22 on the highway, and 21 miles per gallon combined. So that's only a loss of 1 mile per gallon combined. And I'll remind the Canadian story, I keep forgetting, guys. 21 mpg is 11.2 liters per 100 kilometers. So again, you can just see that with this brand new Tundra, you thought Toyota might really try to make a statement with the fuel economy, but they kind of didn't. They made more of a statement with those big power numbers and less about sipping fuel.
And I think that rings true here with the numbers that you get out of the 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6 non-hybrid.
Yeah.
Because over here, we're just running 17 miles in the city, 22 on the highway, and 19 combined, or 12.3 liters per 100. And if you look, I mean, from the most efficient to the non-hybrid platform, you've only got a difference of 2 liters per 100, which is really not that much better.
Yeah.
But like you said, for the horsepower numbers, like
Yeah,
it's a
exactly.
trade-off there. They didn't go full-blown fuel efficiency.
No, and I guess we expected them to, because the knock on the Tundra for so long was that it was so thirsty with the V8. So maybe it was just that our expectations were too high there. But, you know, if you look at the other brands, they're still not quite there when it comes to those fuel economy numbers. And now we'll tell you guys, Matthew and I just finished filming a Tundra versus a Ram 1500. So we took that non-hybrid 3.5 V6 and we put it up to a 5.7 Hemi.
With the e-torque system.
With e-torque, correct. We went out and we drove 100 kilometers on a blustery, snowy, frigid, cold day.
Steve got buried in a pretty good avalanche at one point while we were shooting.
It was cold. You guys will see that footage soon enough. But the whole point was to test the fuel economy. And without giving anything totally away, because we'd love you to come back and watch the full video, the Toyota was fairly comparable to the Hemi, which, of course, you think a twin-turbo V6 is going to come in and undercut that huge V8. And again, you'll have to come back for the specific results, but they were too close for comfort in my books.
It was shocking all throughout the day, and certainly when we got to the pumps, I know both of us kind of we cocked an eyebrow and we're a little, huh? But like you said, come back and watch that one in the coming days and you'll see exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So now we might as well jump on. That's all our fuel economy talk. I know it's a lot of numbers, so you can start to glaze over a little bit. But again, I do think it's super important these days.
Well, I mean, we can break it down. Ram was the best overall.
Yes, sorry.
And they were also the worst overall in the same categories.
I didn't even consider that, but you're right. The Ram EcoDiesel is the most efficient half-ton today you can buy, and the Ram TRX is the most inefficient half-ton today you can buy. So I guess kudos to Ram for being the best and the worst.
We covered all the bases.
Exactly. And then that GM, honorable mention, it's only a couple miles per gallon worse on the highway than the Ram, so it really is right there too. So yeah, let's move on to some news. And again, this is not pickup truck news. This is van news. Last week, or just a couple days ago, Ram released the 2023 ProMaster. So let's go ahead and take a look at what this updated van looks like. There she is right there. And one of the big things with the Matt is just straight up the way it looks. You know what? It's always looked, now it looks even weirder. Sorry, I stretched it out. It always looked a little bit funny. To me, it always looked a bit like a fish. And I think they've done away with some of that by updating this plastic bodywork up here and stuff. Still kind of ugly.
It has that weird bubble front end to it still. But I mean, at the end of the day, when you're buying this vehicle to drive for work,
who cares?
Who really cares? Nobody's looking and going, oh, check out that sexy ProMaster coming down the road there.
All right, that is a totally fair point. They just went on a lot about how it's updated. Now, one functional upgrade on the front, brand new LED headlamps, which Ram says are a lot brighter, because apparently people were complaining about ProMaster headlights, so that is definitely an advantage for someone out there working. The powertrain in this ProMaster for now is just the Pentastar. That's a 3.6 liter V6 that makes 276 horsepower, 250 pound-feet of torque, and is now mated to a 9-speed automatic. And I jumped the gun on this photo a little here, Matt, but I brought this up because the real change, honestly, is with the interior. The interior of this ProMaster has totally been overhauled, and it looks a heck of a lot better now. There's the photo I was going for.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you got the big screen there in the center, updated steering wheel, all your controls. You're also getting things like Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, 360-degree cameras, navigation, adaptive cruise, lane keep assist, park assist, all of that technology. I think that's really the big deal.
So they've taken a lot of the comfort features out of the Ram playbook.
Exactly.
So the bigger screen and all the other stuff, all the stuff that you want as a driver.
100%.
And I mean, these people spend a lot of hours in these things, presumably. You're a delivery guy, you get the passenger version, you're a shuttle driver, you spend a lot of hours in this truck. You want it to be comfortable, you want it to be, set up for your style. And I mean, this gives people options. I'm sure that there's a plain Jane version too for the working man, but these are nice.
Yeah, and honestly, this feature I'm showing on screen right now, the 360-degree camera, like, why wasn't that in vans first? Why did it come to cars before it went to vans? It makes so much sense to have that camera in these working vans. So what else? Now, in terms of the actual configurations, Matt, the only thing that changed is there's now this ultra-high roof model. Besides that, though, it all stayed the same. There are still 19 total configurations, 3 roof heights, 3 wheelbases, 4 different lengths. You can get cargo lengths of 8 foot, 10 foot, 12 foot, and 13.5 foot. So any size ProMaster you need, you can basically find it. And then finally, if you want to talk towing and payload, this thing can do up to 6,910 pounds of towing and a best-in-class 4,680 when it comes to payload, which is quite a bit.
Those are huge numbers.
And that's what really matters.
Well, and I think the big one here, too, is we don't know when, but there is also a plug-in battery hybrid drivetrain coming in the ProMaster.
They did announce
it's confirmed. We don't know what or when, but it is coming for sure.
Yeah, and same thing, right? In that space, if you're doing local deliveries, I think running a plug-in hybrid, a hybrid, or an all-electric just makes so much sense.
Why not? I mean, you might not make the whole day on battery alone, but that much more fuel savings.
Yeah. Now, the one thing they didn't do on the ProMaster, which I think is the most common knock against it, is that it is still front-wheel drive. It's, I believe, the only van out there that's front-wheel drive. If you ask Ram, they'll tell you that the big advantage of that is turning radius, and they might be correct. But, of course, the disadvantage is once you get all that weight on your rear end, it's going to lift your drive wheels, and you end up getting a bit of that light steering, a bit of that kind of torque steer feeling. So the front-wheel drive is hit or miss. Depends on, I guess, what you're going for. So that's the new 2023 ProMaster. If you guys have questions about that, go ahead and let them rip. But Matt, let's move on to the next topic of our live show, and I think this is an especially exciting one. Maybe you guys saw it. We have a full video now on the channel, but we are heading to the Arctic. So Truck King and Toyota Canada have teamed up, and Toyota Canada is basically sending us up there with a couple brand new Tundras. So the trip is Tacoma to Tundra. We're going to start in Tacoma, Washington, of course, in the northwestern U.S., and we're going to go all the way up through British Columbia, up to Whitehorse in the Yukon, continue north from there, go to Inuvik in the Northwest Territories, and then finally up to Tuktoyaktuk, and we're going to end right at the Arctic Ocean. Of course, this is so exciting. We've been planning this for a while. We initially did a trip with Toyota Canada back in 2014 when we went out to Labrador to test a couple of Tundras. That was an incredible trip. You can find a video on the channel about that trip here as well. And that was such a success that Toyota, you know, when this new truck came about, they came to us and said, we'd love to do another adventure series. So we came up with the idea.
Seems like every time they got a new truck, they're like, where would you take it?
Yeah.
Where would you take this?
Which, I mean, you know, massive props to Toyota, right? They're stepping up, and they're, you know, obviously confident in their product. Now, we're not overlanding or off-roading, so it's not like we're doing anything insane. We're driving on roads, but these are still some of the most rugged roads in North America. There's no doubt about that. Some of the most remote roads in North America.
And we're tackling them in late winter, early spring?
Yeah.
So snow and mud and sinkholes and fun stuff. No bugs yet. We're skipping bugs. I'm excited about skipping bugs.
Yeah, I'm okay with that too. And that was the point, actually. We could have gone in June when it was warm.
Beautiful and dry
been nice.
and paved.
But we're going at the end of April for that exact reason. We want some of that messy, sloppy weather. And when we get to the Arctic, I'd like it to be the Arctic, you know? We want to put these trucks through the ringer. And that's what we want to report back to you guys, right? We're going to talk fuel economy. We're going to talk comfort. What's it like to clean these trucks after they get muddy and dirty, shooting and filming and driving for days on end. So there's a whole lot of things we want to talk about. I want you guys to weigh in because obviously, you know, having the audience interaction is massively important, and we want to answer your questions. That's why we're doing this, to show off these trucks and show off the aspects that you guys want to see. So, you know, jump in the comments right now and ask us, or, you know, send us an email. Make sure you get your questions in so we can really kind of refine what we're going to look at when we're out there.
And all along the way, we will be updating you guys. We will be doing, at least the very least, shorts and photos and posts from all along the way.
Probably live shows,
obviously,
too.
there will
I'm
be some
hoping we
live
can do
shows,
lives.
in-truck live shows, if at all possible, is
Yeah.
on the docket. And obviously, proper, full edited videos whenever we get the chance to get them up for you. And I mean, the big thing, too, is Toyota is giving us both power plants in 2 different trucks. We have this confirmed now this week,
Yeah,
so I think we can finally say it.
Yeah.
We are getting the twin-turbo V6 in Which one?
It's a TRD off-road.
Thank you.
With, what's exciting to me, too, is it's the long wheelbase. So it's the crew cab with the long bed. So that thing's a monster. And then, of course, it's based on an SR5, too. So it's the more basic interior, smaller screen, analog gauges. And then the beast, the TRD Pro in that brand new, I think it's Inferno Orange or one of those crazy orange colors.
The TRD Pro is going to have the hybrid drivetrain.
Exactly.
So we're going to have both for the entire trip, so we'll be able to compare both fuel economies head-to-head over that massive distance, and they're giving us a trailer, which we're going to swap back and forth. We'll try and mirror the amount of towing time between two trucks, I'm sure, to give you the best representation, but we'll be able to test them both head-to-head on the same roads and say, hey, yeah, if you're the guy doing these roads or these types of drives, logging roads, adventure drives, maybe this one's better, maybe this one's better. But either way, just excited to see how well they do.
For sure.
At the end of the world, the top of the world, if you will.
It is up there, man. I mean, and outside of the trucks, too, that's it. It's just absolutely beautiful up there. I was lucky enough to do the Inuvik to Tuktoyaktuk Highway in 2019 with Chevrolet, actually. They brought us up there to drive the Silverado. It's an unbelievable part of the world, just so different than what we're used to. And that's honestly one of the parts I'm most excited for, is sharing the history, sharing the culture, sharing just how rugged those parts of the world are. It's beautiful.
I mean, we're following the famous Gold Rush Trail pretty much all the way to Dawson City and then on to, the diamond mines in the top of the world.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty cool. So like we already mentioned, you know what? Get your questions in now. Let us know what you want to see out of the trip, out of the Tundras, how you'd like the coverage to come out, whether you like live shows or edited videos. We're still kicking these things around and trying to come up with the best kind of formats.
And if you want to see the full route and all the details, we just put up a video earlier this week.
Yeah.
You can click on over to that, and there's lots more information in there than what we've even given you here tonight.
Yeah, exactly. So, follow along. That's going to be exciting. I cannot wait to get out there, man. All right, Matt. Well, I think that's just about it on Tundras to the Arctic. Now, we do have a couple of questions which we have received over the last week, so thanks for sending them in. And we will start with the very long question, which is also a Tundra question. I will try to condense it a little bit here so I don't have to read everything here. So, Tom, and again, thanks for the question. Tom owns a 2013 Tundra SR5 4x4 with a whole bunch of cool options and upgrades done to it. I'm not reading the whole list.
Headers, shocks. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, he's done a lot.
Yeah. So Tom says he's waited a decade for the new Tundra. He wants to buy a hybrid Platinum or a TRD Pro. Ride quality is my #1 priority. I also like to trailer at high speeds of 80 to 85 miles per hour. Tom says he's upset that you can't get the multi-terrain option on the Platinum, so he's leaning TRD Pro. Here's the question. Finally, we'll get there. Given that the TRD Pro is just releasing, which one do I go with, the TRD Pro or the Capstone? Which one has better ride quality? And are you aware of any aftermarket air ride options for the TRD Pro? That was a lot. I didn't even hit everything in there. But again, it sounds like what Tom is really after is the best riding Tundra out there. And that might be the TRD Pro. We have driven quite a few different, trims of this truck now.
Yeah.
And the TRD Pro is the softest suspension, right? It soaks up the road in front of you the best. That's the advantage of it. So I will say it's got great ride quality. The disadvantage, though, is it is so soft that you get that body roll, right? You're rolling through the corners. You're feeling a bit more of it sort of in the top end of the truck. That sway.
So when you're towing, like you say, you've got a fishing boat and an enclosed trailer, a 2-up UTV trailer, you're going to feel it.
Yeah, that's
You're
it.
going to feel that sway. You're going to feel that tail wagging the dog effect.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say don't get the TRD Pro because of it, because I think it will tow it just fine, but you will feel it more so than if you got the Capstone. Now, the one thing I cannot comment on is the airbags in the rear, because I have not personally driven a Tundra with them yet. None of the ones we've had have had the optional airbags.
I'm sure there are lots of aftermarket suppliers that make products for this type of thing.
Sure.
It's just something we don't get a lot of that kind of stuff because the factory doesn't offer it, so we don't necessarily see it.
Yeah, well, that's it. And so, but that's what I'm saying is in that Capstone, I can't say what it's like with the bags, but I can tell you that the standard suspension is much more comfortable than the last Tundra, much smoother than the last Tundra. Still not the best riding half-ton you can get. It's still a little busy. I think that's the best word I've come up with to describe the new Tundra. So yeah, if you go non-TRD Pro, you're gonna feel kind of everything in the road, but like I said, it's more comfortable than the last one. It's splitting hairs there, I know. But then if you go TRD Pro, you're absolutely getting a much smoother, softer ride. You will trade some of that towing confidence up for it though. I don't know if that exactly answers your question. At the end of the day, if it was me, I would go for the TRD Pro, I guess, because of that ride quality, but that's going to come down really to what you like too. I don't think the multi-terrain select is that worth it to go for the capstone or to not get it, but anyways.
Yeah.
So, Tom, that's it. Now, let's move on to Matthew. Now, Matthew asks, what winch should I put on my 3500 Ram single rear wheel? I'm waiting for my 22. Matthew, I have good news and bad news. The good news is I have some advice, but the bad news is I don't know that much about winches. There's so many options. I'm not going to say get an XYZ winch. Plus fitment issues, I would hate to recommend something that didn't fit. I will say two things. The first thing is that I have never had an issue with a Warren winch. That's the biggest guy out there. It's the one I've used the most personally. The second thing is just, be aware of your fitment, your front bumper. Make sure you really look into this because you don't want to buy something that's going to get in there. Or even, sometimes it'll fit, but you can't get to the freewheel spool on the side because there's something else in your bumper that blocks it off. So I guess that's my advice is watch the fitment and maybe go Warren.
And don't just match your truck's weight to the capacity. You definitely, it's one of those situations where for a few dollars more, you may want to think about going a little bit overkill. So your truck, you only need a 10,000 pound winch because your truck's only 9,500. That's great. But get the 15,000 pound. You got to pull yourself out of the mud. I'm assuming you're winching because you're stuck. Definitely go overkill in this type of a situation.
Yeah, that's a fair point. So that's about it for that one. Finally, we got one last canned question from Brandon. He says, would you recommend the Ridgeline for 2 kids in car seats, one rear-facing and one forward-facing? Brandon currently has a full-size F-150, but he thinks it might be too big for what he does. This is a common thing we've heard a ton of, right? Guys who get into half tons and then decide they're too big, but then you're worried to go smaller because you want to make sure you can still bring your family. Well, I guess after just doing this test, I will say the Ridgeline has a great back seat.
It
There's
does.
Tons of space back there. Is it as roomy as an F-150? No, it is not. But of all the mid-sizers, it's one of the best. My only knock on it is the top tether system for forward-facing car seats is extremely annoying. I have no idea why it's so convoluted. You have to wrap it up around this little tether behind the seat, redirect loop, and then down to the floor. It's a little thing if you only install the seat once and leave it forever, but it's something to be aware of. But yes, of all the mid-sizers, I think the Ridgeline is maybe the most family-friendly.
It's so comfortable. On the flip side to Steve's forward-facing seats, we had my rear-facing seat in the back of the truck the other night, and we had about an hour and a half drive. The seat fit fine. My wife, it was behind my wife's side, and she had tons of room to get back. Actually reclined the seat a little bit because it was a bit of a later drive. There's so much room in that cabin. And I mean, I don't know what engine you're running in the F-150, but if you're stepping down from, say, a V8 to the V6, you're going to get that fuel efficiency. You're going to get all that comfort. And the Ridgeline will do pretty much anything you need it to do, like most half tons will.
Yeah.
There's really, it's a great product, really is.
Yeah, we just did Ridgeline versus Nissan Frontier here on the channel. Again, maybe you saw it. If you didn't, check it out. And that was our takeaway was, the Frontier is better at the trucky stuff. There's no lie. It tows more. And if you want to go off-road, don't get a Ridgeline.
No.
The Frontier is pretty impressive off-road. But then for everything else, everyday driving comfort, interior space, power, fuel economy, the bed size, everything else, I end up leaning towards the Ridgeline. So, yes, again, if you're asking about families in a mid-sized truck, I think the Ridgeline is a solid choice.
Alrighty.
So that's it for our canned questions. I'll remind you guys once again, if you ever want to ask us anything, hey, at trucking.ca. And Matt, we can go answer some questions from our commenters.
I've got 2 to address first that aren't even questions.
Okay, go ahead.
We got these really Canadian themed comments tonight, and I just wanted to dive right in, and then we'll get to some questions. So the first one was Mr. Dougie Doo. Hello, bearded men wearing sock caps.
Called a toque.
I would call it a toque, eh?
It's funny. It's like a sock cap for a lot of people. That's a normal thing. I'd never heard of sock
I'd
cap.
never heard of that in
until
my
I
life.
went to the southern United States, and they're like, "Oh, it's a sock cap," and I was like, "What? It's a toque."
Yeah.
Funny regional difference.
And then the other one was actually a little bit earlier than that. You both remind me of that Rick Moranis beer ad. Oh, good day, eh?
Good day.
Take off, hoser.
Yeah, we got a Bob and Doug vibe, especially today.
I got a turtleneck and a French toast. Anyway, I thought it was weird that we got 2 of those in one night. So yes, we are very Canadian. Alrighty, the first one I did see here that I wanted to talk about.
I got one ready if you want.
Do you recommend, is this the one you were looking at?
It was.
Do you recommend an F-150 Lightning or a Power Boost? I do occasional camper towing locally in and around the Ottawa area.
Well, it's an interesting question actually because it addresses what we've been talking about a ton lately, which is all electric towing, right? And all towing is going to make you much less efficient, right? Regardless of what you're doing it with. But if you're doing it with an EV powertrain, you have to recharge. So the question is, where do you recharge on your way? Do you do it with your trailer on? That's the first problem. And then the second problem is, how far are you going and how much range is that trailer going to suck up? So if you're only going locally, the Lightning could be a good choice for you, but as of today, if you're telling me you have a travel trailer, I still say Power Boost. I get scared that you're gonna end up in a situation where you can't find power.
If you're, like you mentioned, you're towing in and around Ottawa. So I'm assuming you live in Ottawa and you're towing out to Madawaska, Huntsville, the Algonquin Park, the Valley, all through that area. Yeah, the nice thing about provincial parks, especially with camping, is the Ontario provincial parks have announced that they are going to be putting in charging stations.
Nice.
Or at least making higher amperage posts available for your own little at-home 120 plug. So if you're towing out to, let's say, a campsite in Algonquin with your F-150 Lightning, you're going to be there for a week. You don't need to run into town too much, so you can leave your truck plugged in. It's going to take 3 days to charge that truck from just a wall outlet, but you can do it. Run it out, you're going to burn the battery, you're going to get to where you're going, you're going to charge it while you're there, run it back home. But you really got to sit down and calculate your range. And I would even go so far as to say, hook up your trailer if you go all electric, and this might be just a basic rule of thumb, go for a 100-kilometer drive. See what you consumed with your trailer, nearly fully loaded, for 100 kilometers. And then extrapolate. This campground is 300K from home. Can I make it?
Yeah, those are all fair points. And then I think this is a general statement with EVs, but this is all based on what there is today. I think that, in the near future, obviously the infrastructure is trying to really come on strong, and this will be less of a conversation as the infrastructure gets better. But as of today, like Matthew says, there's a lot more thought and math involved in the Lightning and the all-electric than there would be in the Power Boost. One massive advantage, though, Matt, that I love for both of these trucks is that both of them will be able to help power your camper. The Lightning, that thing can power your entire house. So if you get to your campsite with extra range, you'll be able to suck out of your truck, which is pretty amazing. And if you have the Power Boost today with the Pro Power onboard, you can run your generator, right? Run your engine in your truck as your Jenny. So that is a real benefit for anyone who uses a travel trailer and gets an F-150. I think everyone else should follow suit. I'll be a little surprised if
nobody else brings out that technology.
Yeah. Although with an EV, that being said, having plugs on an EV is not that tough, and most of them do. So.
We had someone drop in here with a comment on the ProMaster, said that it looks like a doorstop.
Yeah, that's pretty fair.
It's got that big wedge on the front.
Very wedgy.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
I think I said it earlier. For me, it was always a fish. It's got that weird fish face. But.
Alan wonders how the EPA figures actually measure up to real-world fuel use.
It's a great question, and it's interesting that the EPA hasn't updated its testing regime in a long time. People have really criticized them for that because manufacturers have figured out the best things to do for their system, such as small turbocharged engines. Small turbocharged engines do well on EPA tests. They also do well in the real world when unladen, But the real hit is once you load them up. You load up a turbocharged engine, you're digging into that turbo, and fuel economy usually goes right out the window. Now, it's not the EPA's job to go tow a bunch of trailers and then report that fuel economy, but that is just one kind of general thing I have found, is that the numbers the EPA gives you for turbos definitely always feel lower than what you're going to get in the real world, especially when you're working them hard. And then on the flip side, that's the opposite for diesel and gas. A diesel engine, once you put a trailer on, is it going to get worse? Yes. Significantly worse? No. And that's sort of the beauty of that diesel. My experience, though, as well, is with the EPA ratings, they're usually not too bad.
Not
The
too
diesel and
far
gas
off.
ratings,
Maybe
I usually feel okay about.
Don't take them word as law, but as a pretty solid guideline for sure. And I think this is the niche where we find ourselves and other people sliding into this market too, where we will go out and drive that exact 100 kilometers with that engine and tell you this is what it did. So, and that is, I mean, like in our most recent fuel study video that you guys will see in a few days, we were out in some wicked winds, some blizzards, we had some highway, we had some country, we had a little bit of what you might call your daily commute in Canada.
Yeah, sure.
So it's a real world number that we came up with, which is close to what the EPA said, but not exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And that's because the EPA test is not a full real world test. It's a lab combined with the road. So yeah, no, like I mentioned, I think those numbers are pretty good. They're not perfect. And then we have the new electric era too, Matt, which this is an interesting thing. Most people, I feel like, go by miles per kilowatt or kilowatts per mile. That's like kind of an accepted standard. But the EPA puts out MPGE, miles per gallon equivalent, which is for hybrid and electric vehicles. And those numbers are usually like 125 MPGE, which I don't think, frankly, really means anything to anyone yet. So that's another interesting question, is how the EPA will keep up with electric vehicles and how they will choose to, rate them and try to give consumers that information.
Yeah. Well, this one is more of a statement regarding when we were talking about our Tundra trip to the Arctic.
Yeah.
Ken suggests that we need a 21 Tundra to compare the difference.
Well,
and that's what we did last time.
Yeah, I appreciate the suggestion. We talked about it, bringing an old one and a new one. That is what we did last time. Although it isn't exactly what we did last time, because technically that 2014 truck, it wasn't brand new in 14. It was a heavy refresh.
Yeah.
So that we had two 5.7 V8s still, right? The real reason why we're doing what we're doing is because we want both new powertrains. So maybe we should have brought 3 Tundras, but that would have been that much more expensive too.
That many more guys and that much more fuel.
Yeah, so anyways, we decided that the best thing to do was show off the new technology rather than compare it to the V8, because let's be honest, I can already tell you, the V8's super torquey, super powerful, and super thirsty. You know what I mean? I would have felt great about it, actually driving it, but then at the pump it would have been brutal. So I don't think we needed to test that to kind of tell you that.
12 jerry cans instead of 6.
Yeah. One of my fears, actually, Matt, and I've seen a lot of comments to this effect, is the lack of tow hooks on the front of the Tundra.
Yeah, a few people have mentioned that now.
You know what I mean? So we need to get a soft shackle and maybe climb underneath.
Kinetic rope
find
with
a
a hook.
spot
Yeah.
we know we can hook up to, because who knows if we end up in the ditch. It's going to be annoying without tow hooks.
Yeah. Someone mentioned for our can question earlier that the 1794 Tundra with the off-road package would make the suspension softer. I can't comment to that, but I do know the TRD off-road.
Yes. Also gets different suspension tuning than the standard.
So that might be something worth looking into.
And that would be a middle ground between sort of the standard suspension and the TRD Pro, which is going to be extremely soft. Although I've driven them both, and I will say, if you want absolute ride quality, I still lean Pro rather than off-road. But if you want that towing, then yeah, you might want to go towards that truck too. So I appreciate that comment.
And then we've got pretty much wrapping up our questions. We're kind of light in the chat here, guys. If anybody out there is thinking about something, you're thinking about buying, thinking about what you should buy, feel free, drop in right now. We've got a little bit of time left in the show tonight.
Yeah, no, there's one here. You're missing it. I'm thinking about a Toyota Tacoma. What's your recommendations trim-wise? Well, first of all, that's not a lot of information, of course. I'd like to know what you're doing with your Tacoma, is always the old story. Tacoma, I don't know. The TRD Pro is an extremely fun truck.
Yeah.
I'm not if I'm not mistaken now too, and of course I don't have all the info in front of me, I believe Limited is your top trim Tacoma. I'm not a big fan of top trim Tacoma because in my opinion, the interior is just not that great, even in a top trim. So I don't really see it being worth the money. You're probably better off in an SR5 or maybe a mid trim. Again, I don't know all the trims, so I might be not perfect there, but something more middle of the road with your Tacoma rather than stepping up right into the top.
If you're going full off-road machine, then obviously TRD Off-Road or TRD Pro.
Yeah.
Like, there's no real question there. But if you want something that's more commuter, the odd job, maybe a little bit of off-road or a cottage trip here and there, like an SR5 wouldn't be the end of the world.
Yeah.
Something right in the middle, throw in the options that you want, make it as comfortable as you want.
Yeah.
It's a tough question.
Without more information.
Because everybody's going to dress them differently for their own tastes or for their own needs.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll put features on the truck. I mean, like I wouldn't buy another truck without a heated seat and a heated steering wheel. That's just the point I'm at in my life. But there was a time where I would have said, I don't need that. Keep my money. So it all depends on where you're at and what you need.
You know what though? There's another point on Tacoma too, which that it's going to be brand new next year. We expect 2023 we should see a new Tacoma along with new General Motors twins, Colorado Canyon.
Yep.
So that's pretty exciting too. It might be worth your while to wait a little bit. Maybe
And new EV platforms with everything. It's going to be an interesting year next year.
Yeah, we'll have to see too. Toyota teased that all-electric Tacoma and the all-electric little mini baby FJ Cruiser.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see if they actually go ahead and do that or if those are just going to be weird concepts. But again, it might be worth waiting for to see what that new Tacoma holds.
All right, Ben. Well, I'm glad we
Excuse
could
me.
help out with the Power Boost Lightning debate there. That's awesome.
Yeah, I see Matt saying there he's waiting on a Maverick. 7 months waiting. Man, that is tough. It's the same thing. We just shot another video today on a Maverick, and that's the most common comment I've seen. It's like, great that it's a nice truck, but I can't buy
get
one. And it's the same thing. Matthew, he works at a group of dealerships. The Ford dealer didn't have a single Ranger or a single Maverick on the lot today when I showed up. I rolled in the Maverick, which was from Ford Canada, and they were like, where's this truck
There were
from?
sales guys running out going, can I sell this? Please, can I sell this?
So that is a valid point. And now, again, it's not something we can comment on usually, or that we usually comment on, because I can't tell you how long you're going to be waiting. There's a whole number of reasons right now.
I know the backlog with our Ford dealers. We have a dealership group. We're a collection. We have Ford brands, Hyundai brands, Nissan brands. We're a complete collective. And our Ford brands are telling me that every month they're being promised 20 trucks, 40 trucks, 60 trucks, and they get 5, 0, 10. They're not making the numbers that they're being promised or that are on the shipping schedule. So it's really tough out there for Ford at the very least right now. Our Hyundai brand seems to be catching up. Nissan seems to have some pretty good inventory flow, but Ford, every time I hear more stories out of that camp, I just
Yeah, that's rough. That is sucks too to wait so long for your brand new truck.
absolutely.
So I see JP Off-Road Adventures just weighed in. He says he has a Kawasaki Teryx and he likes the Jeep Gladiator. Have we towed with the Gladiator? What was it like? So absolutely we have. The last Gladiator we towed with was actually a manual Mojave, which was super cool.
That was neat.
I wouldn't recommend that package for towing, but it was a fun package to tow with. I mean, a Kawasaki Teryx plus a trailer, you're what, maybe 3,000 pounds? No problem. The Gladiator will feel absolutely fine with that behind it. Again, I don't have the exact number. I believe it's 7,250 maybe, right around 7,000 pounds that the Gladiator maxes out at. So a pair of side-by-sides, you're going to be fine with it. And the one thing Jeep did with that Gladiator to make it good is they really stretched out that wheelbase. That's one of the reasons why we complain about it off-road. It's got a bad breakover angle, but that helps with towing. And there's no options either. They didn't say there's a long wheelbase and a short wheelbase. No, they just give you a long wheelbase. But yeah, solid tow rig for a couple side-by-sides.
And they had to get away from the stigma of, Jeep's tow bad, because there was a lot of that going into that project, I'm sure.
That is totally fair, and let's be honest, Wranglers do tow bad.
They do.
So they definitely had their work cut out for them. But yeah, just stretching out that wheelbase was good. So yeah, no, Gladiator with that behind it, you wouldn't worry for a second.
So Rooftop says, with chip and part shortages, do you think it's a bad time to order a truck, or do you think companies will be cutting corners to get trucks out? Well, the truth there, I think, is we have been cutting corners. A lot of brands have only been optioning fully loaded trucks because they've been saving those parts for those trucks, or
Yeah.
fleet vehicles.
Yeah.
So you're basically one end of the scale or the other, nothing in between.
Yeah.
Or you've been getting in situations like with the General Motors
GM.
products where you bought a and I can't even think of a trim off the top of my head here, an AT4, yeah? And you had a heated seat, you had a heated steering wheel, you had a couple other options. Well, you got your delivery of your truck, and you got a fancy little note that said, don't worry, we're going to mail you, or you can come in and we'll install the rest of these parts soon.
Yeah, exactly. And I believe it's a $50 credit or something, this tiny little credit that they gave you. At least they promised that you're eventually going to get those things.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, definitely brands are having to make those tough decisions. Like you said, sell a top trim truck, or, you know, pull some features out of the truck to decontent them. So to actually answer your question, yeah, I do think it's a bad time to buy a vehicle, you know? And then to add on to that, you have the dealer shortages.
Yeah.
So that's resulting in MSRP markups. That's carrying over to the used car market. The whole market just feels like it's on
insane.
fire right now. Yeah, so it just, you want it to cool off, I feel like, before you go and buy a brand new truck.
I mean, we're in situations right now where I've actually been looking at a newer car myself lately, and I'm looking at selling a car that I've owned for 3 years, and I'm looking at selling it for almost double, but 1.5 times at the very least its value when I purchased it used. And I've driven it for 2.5 years, put 75, 80,000 kilometers on it, and it's almost going to sell for more than I paid for it, which is just,
Yeah.
it bends my brain a little bit.
Yeah, it's definitely a wild new car
It's a
buying
seller's market.
right
I don't
now.
know if I'd call it a buyer's market right now.
Fair enough. Well, what else do we got here? Ken.
Here in Newfoundland.
Shout out to the Newfoundlanders.
How you getting on there, bye?
Ken says that they have loads of trucks at the Ram dealer and no one else has any. Well, that's sort of what Matt was saying too. It's interesting how brand specific these problems can be. You know, one brand is flowing and one's not. And maybe that's allocation too, right? They're saying we only have so many trucks, so we're not shipping them to Newfoundland, you know? We're shipping them to other places. We know those sell quick. So it's just, yeah, it's hit or miss right now between brands and when they can get new vehicles.
Yep, pretty much.
So what else do we got here? Angel weighs in, just a very quick one there. First or second gen Titan? I mean, I gotta say second gen. I mean, that's a really nice truck. I mean, it went away in Canada. We always talk about that. I don't think that was because it was a bad truck. I think it was well executed. I just don't think it ever did anything better than the rest.
No.
I don't think it stood out from the pack for any reason. But that update, I mean, that V8 is excellent. When that new truck came out, the new Titan, that was the best sounding V8 on the market. It still might be. That thing sounds so good. It's hugely powerful, big interior, nice infotainment. Yeah, I think second gen Titan, they fixed some of the little problems from the first. I go second gen. And I think that's about it for our questions.
Yeah.
So, folks, if you guys got anything else you want to ask us, or hey, you know what, you can also suggest topics. Like today, I dug into this fuel economy. Let me know what you want me to dig into next week. And if we don't get enough news, well, then we'll keep on doing stuff like this and sharing that stuff with you. What else do we have coming up, Matt?
What's new in videos this week?
Yeah, so
we do a little tease here.
Sure, I mentioned we had a Maverick today. We did a Maverick versus a Ford Ranger. That's a new Ford Ranger, so we're going to really compare those two, the size of them. Matthew and I wrapped up that Ram versus Tundra. That's going to be coming out real soon. And then another thing I'm excited about, Matt, is we bought ourselves a set of big industrial rollers. So you've already seen them maybe if you watched our video from today where we talked all-wheel drive versus four-wheel. But these rollers really allow us to test all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive. It simulates total slip, total loss of traction, and allows you to see how the vehicle, figures things out. So we just did our first test with them. We're still refining the process, but I'm really excited to get
those set
hopefully
up.
every vehicle we get goes on the rollers, to
not?
just see how it deals with those problems.
And I won't give away all the details, but Steve actually dug up this week a new payload testing method.
Also true.
And we're going to be shooting a video on it. Actually, I think continuing to utilize that Maverick, so that'll be a cool video. We're going to go pick up some things, and that's all I'm going to say because it'll be in the video. It'll bring you back, right? To throw in the back of the bed that are extra heavy and will show off how well these trucks can work when the beds are fully loaded.
Yeah, exactly. So we got lots of stuff cooking. I mentioned that we're going to California in a few weeks for brand new ZR2. Then we got the Arctic trip to the Tundra. So lots of stuff coming up here on the Trucking YouTube channel. And I think that's just about it for TK Live this week. So, folks, like I mentioned, please send us those emails.
Somebody loved the roller test. Thank you. They're
Hey.
going to get better.
Appreciate that, Kevin. Yeah, exactly. We're going to keep on making them better because they are really, really good tests. So, folks, can you review quality of today's trucks?
That's a very broad subject.
Yeah, sorry. Ron says, can we review the quality? I mean, we try to, Ron. It is a tough go, though, and I only say that because the vehicles we're in and out of are used by all sorts of people, so it's always hard to kind of separate what's a quality issue from what's someone else's kids in the back seat, kicking the seats or scuffing the doors. Now, I mean, that is real-world testing, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I mean, and then actually, let me go on the next step, which is that most of these trucks don't have quality issues. Trucks are so good now. Brand new vehicles are so good now. If we had a pile of quality issues, I promise you, we would be reporting them. But we just don't see them. So if we did, we would have them out there. But yeah, I can't say I get in trucks every week and go, oh, this is just horrible quality. That never happens anymore. Okay, well,
right.
folks, let's take off now. Good night.
Hey from Manitoba. Thanks from Manitoba. Have a good night.
There you go. Hey from Ontario. Everybody take care and cheers.